Personal finance. Let's talk about it. Hi everyone, my name is Erica and I'm a college senior, but as I've gotten closer to graduation, I've had so many peers ask me for personal finance advice and figured it was about time to just put together a little video series on personal finance basics. Everything that you need to know to be really empowered to start your personal finance journey. Now, in planning the series, I thought what better way to start than by talking about how to manage money. So today we're going to be talking about all things budgeting 101, how to allocate your income, what are the spending benchmarks you should be hitting, and also a little bit of how to plan for the future. Of course, throughout the series, I'm also going to be talking about savings, investing, how to do your taxes, but definitely let me know down below if there are other topics you'd like me to cover. Now, with that said, I'm not a professional advisor. I'm just someone who's done a copious amount of research over the past 4 years into personal finance, who is very passionate about all things life planning, but especially with my finances. And I want to share that information with you all, everything that I've learned, as well as resources that I recommend you all check out and action items for what next to do to get you started on your personal finance journey. This video is perfect for anyone who wants to improve their financial literacy, whether that means you've heard Roth IRA or 401k thrown around before, as well as people in general who are getting started on their personal finance journeys. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, but why do I need to start now? I have my entire life to worry about my retirement plan, saving for a housing down payment, etc. What's in it for me? Well, aside from personal finance being a crucial adult skill that will help you take control of your life plan and build the future that you want, it's actually going to make your future life savings goals literally 10 times easier, and I'm gonna get into why that is in the rest of this video series. Also, just to preface, I have a ton of notes on my laptop, so I'm going to be referencing those throughout the video, as well as I'll be putting up examples on the screen to help you guys out. So without further ado, managing money essentially consists of 3 things. So first, what comes in, or your income. Second, what goes out, or your spending. And third, what gets retained, also known as your savings and investing. Now, the first component, your income, is probably not something that you can immediately change. And there's tons of videos out there for different side hustles you can do, how to build different passive income streams. So that first bucket's not going to be the focus of this video series, but today we're going to be talking about bucket number 2, also known as how to manage what you spend. Now, this can take a lot of different forms. What works for one person might not work for another, so it's really up to you to find what personalized system works best for you. The important thing is to be really aware of how you're spending your money and where you're allocating your funds to, and being very intentional about that process. Now, if you're just beginning, the first step is going to be calculating your net income, or the income that you take home after you pay taxes to the government. I'm gonna leave an income tax calculator in the description box below. That way you can have a quick and easy method to calculate this number, but just bear in mind that this may not be 100% accurate if you have varying financial circumstances, multiple streams of income, or specific retirement accounts, as sometimes there are minor manual adjustments that you'd need to make, but by far and large, for the most part, this is going to get you as close as you need to get. Second, you need to apportion your income into different spending areas. If you have no idea where to start, a good rule of thumb is the 50-30-20 rule, which basically states that 50% of your income goes to the essentials. Think rent payments, your car payments, your insurance, your grocery bills. Anything that is not discretionary spending would be in this category. Then 30% of your income would go to your wants, the concert you want to go to, the trip you'd like to take, the nice bag that you saw online. And that would leave 20% of your post-tax income for saving or investing for your short and long-term goals. And third, we want to get really granular within each of these spending categories, so that way we can zero in on what exactly we're spending. This is going to look different for everyone, of course. Some people may want to calculate the exact number of times they can eat out each week, while others may just say, you know what, I'm going to spend $50 a week on meals. But the important thing, again, is to get really clear on this detail. Alright, so I've done a lot of explaining steps, but let's illustrate this with an example by creating a sample budget. I'm going to be leaving this template in the description box below, but since I've gotten issues on previous videos with accessing Google Drive files, if you're having any issues, please just try to use a non-school affiliated Gmail account, as sometimes school accounts will block external content. But anyways, let's pretend Anna, a data engineer in Houston, which is where I live, is single, has no kids, makes $100,000 a year, and she needs a budget. So she has no kids and no significant others, so she doesn't have to worry about anyone else's expenses, but she still wants to be really mindful of how she's spending her own money. The first step is we need to calculate Anna's post-tax net income. So using that calculator that I alluded to before in this video, we're going to plug in her current income, which is $100,000. We're going to assume that no federal income taxes have been withheld. And since she lives in Texas, luckily there's no state income tax we need to worry about. That box will, of course, need to be adjusted if you live in a state with income tax, and you can really easily Google states with income tax or just say, does X state have income tax on Google, and it should be able to tell you. So that's going to give us a tax expense of $13,841. So step one, determining the net income, will just be $100,000 minus that $13,841, which is going to bring us to $86,159 in post-tax income that Anna gets to play with. Step two is figuring out how to allocate those into the 50, 30, 20% categories. And to do that, let's take a look at the budgeting template. So again, link down below. It's gonna look a little crazy at first because there's just a bunch of references in the file, so it's gonna look like there are errors, but I promise all you need to do is fill in the highlighted cells and everything else will come into place. So first, we discussed that Anna is making $100,000 and has a tax expense of $13,841. So we just put that in there. And now we have the basics guide set. So if we move on to calculating needs, wants, and savings for step two, you can see that this template is automatically going to calculate these in the orange boxes. Finally, we're gonna jump into step three, which is getting really granular and detailed with these needs, wants, and savings goals. So, starting with needs, following the no more than 30% of your pre-tax income on housing rule, that's gonna leave us with $2,500 per month, which Anna can spend on her rent. In Houston, that's gonna go a long way, so just to be on the conservative side, I'm gonna say Anna's gonna spend $2,000 per month between rent and utilities. She also luckily gets medical insurance through her job, so she doesn't need to worry about that, but she's gonna have a $50 renter's insurance. For food, based on the average cost of living in Houston, let's say Anna pays roughly $400 in groceries per month. And she doesn't use the metro, but she does have a car payment, and so with that and gas, it's gonna cost roughly $600 combined every month. She also has toiletries, and these are going to come to an average $50 per month. Of course, toothpaste and body wash aren't things that she's buying every month, but we're gonna just do a monthly average for simplicity. And finally, she's got a phone bill that's $100. Now, the spreadsheet's going to automatically calculate the sum of all of these costs, and we're gonna get a monthly total of $3,150, which is less than the 50% benchmark of $3,600 per month. So we're good here. And another tip when it comes to budgeting is just to always be conservative and leave padding. So for any spending, if you could spend between, say, $5 and $10, you should always round up to the higher number, so $10 in this case. So that way you're never budgeting more than you can afford. Now let's move on to the wants tab. These are in no particular order, but let's say that Anna loves ClassPass, so she wants to have a $90 subscription to that, and there's a gym in her apartment that she doesn't need to pay for. She has Amazon Prime, Spotify, and Netflix that come to a combined $43 per month, and she loves eating out with friends at least 2 to 3 times per month. Sometimes she'll splurge on a really fancy dinner, but then she would lower the frequency of her other meals. So let's just say, for simplicity, $200 per month. She's a big concert goer, so she wants to have $75 per month for that, and she typically takes a trip once per season and has a $1,500 budget for each of those trips, bringing her yearly costs to $1,500 times 4, or $6,000, and divided by 12, that's a $500 monthly average. Now, taking a look at clothing, throughout the year, Anna likes to occasionally buy new pieces, but she typically waits for big sales like Black Friday. So her clothing budget in a year, let's call it $2,400 or $200 a month. In terms of hobbies, Anna loves crocheting, so yarn and tools are her main hobby expenses. Let's just say $40 per month. And finally, in the other category, Anna wears a bit of makeup, but she likes to try new viral products from time to time, as well as she loves buying new home decor, so she spends roughly $100 in the other category per month. And again, we can see that the total is going to bring us to roughly $1,250 per month, which is well below the $2,100 cutoff guide set aside by the 50-30-20 rule. And finally, let's take a look at Anna's savings. Now, I'm going to go way more in depth on how you should save and which accounts you should use later on in this video series, so stick with me for now, but all of the confusing lingo, I promise, will make sense after you watch the next video. But to start, Anna wants to begin building out her emergency fund, which she wants to be 6 months of her living expenses. Now, we can tell from the summary page that she has annual expenses of roughly $52,000 by adding up the needs and wants categories. So her 6-month emergency savings goal is going to be $26,000, or half of that annual spending cost. Now, Anna's young, so she's going to plan to save this amount over the course of the next 2 years. So this year she needs to save $13,000 or $1,083 per month. Next, Anna's thinking about retirement. So she's going to want to max out her Roth IRA. This year, the maximum contribution is $7,000. So just dividing that number by 12, we get $583. Anna's employer also has a 4% match on her 401k plan. So this means that 4% of Anna's salary, $100,000, is going to be matched by the employer if Anna contributes that same amount to her 401k. So doing that calculation, that's going to bring us to $4,000 per year. 4% of $100,000 is $4,000, and then divided by 12, that's $333 every month that she should contribute towards her 401k. She may decide to contribute more, but that's the minimum that she should be contributing because it's literally free money she's getting from her employer since they do the one-for-one matching. Finally, since Anna's so young, she also wants to have buffer for short-term purchases. So she's going to set aside $200 per month to a short-term savings fund. But right now, she's not going to worry about saving for a down payment or any longer-term goals that she'll start thinking about over the next few years. So now we see that Anna's savings total is $2,200 per month, which is above that 20% minimum that she should be saving, so that's good. And so we can see that she has roughly $7,000 left over in her budget. She can either keep her budget like this, so she has wiggle room, or she can allocate that remaining budget to different spending areas. Now, for simplicity, I'm just gonna max out her 401k savings since that allows Anna to have more savings for retirement. And to do that, I'm just literally adding the difference to that retirement account box. So now she's gonna save $900 roughly per month, bringing her monthly total to $2,775. And so now going back to the example summary page, we can see she's roughly accounted for all of the money she's making post-tax. But obviously, when you do this exercise at home, you can make whichever choices best suit your needs. Finally, the last thing I'll mention on the budget spreadsheet is that it'll have a checker at the bottom to make sure that your balance is always positive. So if you do go in the negative, you'll get alerted to an error. All right, so now that you've made your budget, how are you going to keep yourself accountable to your spending? Well, the best way to set yourself up for success is to pre-commit to as many of these expenses as possible. So finding an apartment that's within the budget that you've allocated is one way, as well as choosing the right subscription. So if you've budgeted $50 for your phone plan, choose a phone plan that's within the $50 budget. For things that are more variable, I would recommend keeping track of your monthly spending through spending history or bank statements. And for me personally, tracking every single expense day to day isn't as feasible as looking back over the past month and making sure that I've spent roughly in line with my budget. But again, the important thing is to find a system that really works for you. Ultimately, how you spend your money is going to be up to you because everyone values things differently. Some basic tenets though, of course, are don't spend what you don't have. Make sure you live at or below your means. So that means if you're earning $100,000 per year, don't be spending $120,000. This is basically the key to keeping your cash flow positive so you always have money in the bank and you don't start accruing massive credit card debt. Let's talk about cards. debit versus credit cards. Now, I personally do all of my spending on credit cards due to the benefits of using a credit card versus a debit card, and I would recommend you do the same, with one caveat that I'll mention a little bit later. But essentially, the key here is to treat your credit card like it's a debit card. What people run into the issue is when they start overspending on credit cards because the money doesn't immediately leave your checking account when you use a credit card, like it does when you use a debit card. But if you're mentally treating your credit card like a debit card and you're saying, hey, I just spent $50 on that meal, but that's coming directly out of my bank account, that's not some free money that I got from my credit card company, then you'll be totally fine. You can even pay off your credit card after each expense, essentially treating it like a debit card, although I'd find that pretty tedious. So I just do my credit card payment at the end of the month, but do whatever works for you. And just to briefly highlight some of the pros of using a credit card. So one, you get points or cash back, so you miss out on free money every time you use a debit card. Second, theft protection is a lot better with credit cards. If you lose your debit card, it's a lot more of a pain to cancel that debit card. Transactions are literally coming out of your bank account, so it's harder to get that money back. And it's much easier just to cancel a credit card and nullify any of the transactions that haven't even left your bank account yet. And third, a lot of credit cards have secondary benefits that you can take advantage of, like travel insurance or access to lounges and reservation bookings. And the fourth, and probably the most important, is that you get to build your credit. There are many components that go into a credit score, but in essence, it's a measure that lenders use to see how likely you are to pay them back. So the higher your credit score, the safer a risk you are for them to take, and this means more favorable terms that they'll offer you. So if you're trying to finance a car or take out a mortgage, you're going to want a higher credit score. Now, one caveat I did mention earlier is with regards to credit utilization, which is basically a measure of how much of your total credit line you've used. So for example, if you have a $1,000 credit line and your current balance is $100, then you have 100 divided by 1,000, or 10% credit utilization. If this number gets too high, namely if it's above 30%, this is really bad and can hurt your credit score. So you always want to keep your credit utilization under 30% and really under 10% to see the biggest gains in your credit score. Now, of course, there's a workaround. So let's say you have an upcoming $600 expense and it's in the travel category and you have a credit card that has a $1,000 credit line, but it gives you a lot of cash back in travel. So you want to use it. You can definitely do that, but just make sure you make a payment to that credit card before the end of the billing cycle. That way, that statement doesn't contain the $600 credit utilization. Instead, you can make your $600 payment, pay off $550 the next day, and so your current balance would only be $50 on that credit card, or 5% utilization. Now, I could talk about credit cards for a whole video in and of itself, but if you don't already have a credit card, I'm gonna leave some links to some good starter cards down below. But namely, I would recommend Bank of America Customized Cash Rewards for Students, the Discover It Student Cashback Card, or the Capital One Saver Rewards for Students. Each of these comes with their own set of benefits, so I'll leave links in the description for you to read about them, but my advice would be to pick one with bonus categories in which you do most of your spending and start using it at least once a month. And if you already have your starter card and are looking to diversify, then I'd really recommend the Chase Freedom Unlimited card, which tends to accept people only after you've had at least a year of credit history. But this card offers 1.5% cash back on all spending, so it's a great second card. And for reference, I personally started with the Bank of America student card, then I got the Capital One Saver card, and finally the Chase Freedom Unlimited card, and together those cards have been serving me well and allowing me to get the most cash back in a variety of spending categories. Now, some of the links I'm leaving below are referral links, but please don't feel pressured to get any of the cards I've recommended. Make sure you do your research and figure out which card best aligns with your needs. These are merely just recommendations. Alright, so that takes us to the end of today's video. We've hit on everything you need to know for budgeting and managing money 101. But if you've gotten to the end of this video and you're like, what do I do right now? Here are two things you can do after clicking out of this video. So first is to click on the budgeting template down below and start building out a plan for how you're going to manage your money. And second is to start building your credit score. So if that means you are switching more of your spending from your debit to your credit card or opening a credit card for the first time, I would highly recommend just doing more research, seeing which system works for you, what cards might be the right fit, ideally ones with $0 annual fees, and just make sure again to keep in mind that treat credit cards like debit cards mentally, and also bear in mind your credit utilization. And with that, thank you so much for watching today's video and for taking initiative to get ahead on your personal finance journey. In the next video, I'm going to be talking about bucket 3 of personal finance, also known as Savings and Investing 101. And I'm super excited to have you guys along for this little video series. Feel free again to drop any questions in the comment section below. I'll be responding to those as quickly as I can, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.